Hello everybody, welcome to another Arty Mouse film. This week we're going to talk about embroidery techniques that you may or may not have heard of already. I'm going to make an underwater scene using lots of different techniques and stitches. So first of all we have a wagon wheel technique. This is where you draw yourself a star with your thread first of all. It helps to have an uneven amount of spokes on that star, just because you're going to go round and round. You're going to go under and over each spoke of the star, so it helps to have an uneven amount so that when you get back to the beginning you go over what you went under previously and vice versa, which makes for a prettier effect, and it's also a little bit more sturdy. This stitch is often used for flower centres or for roses in traditional embroidery. And you can also use a stem stitch around the edge very loosely to create looser, bigger petals if it is flowers that you're doing. Marian Jasmic is a British artist who is inspired by natural forms. She enjoys tactile, textural effects and exploring textiles as art. She loves not only the close-up view that you get of all the layers she's made, but also the overall effect of her work at a distance. Both are completely different views of her work. She uses machine and hand embroidery. She also uses a soldering iron to burn in different effects to her work. I do really like this work, and I'd love to see it for real in a gallery to really have a close-up look at it. Our next stitch is called the cast-on stitch. So first of all you need to loop your thread around your needle again and again, as if you were making a buttonhole or as if you were casting on, knitting. Keep the loops neat, following each other, and then you need to pull the needle through the loops that you've made. So you need to hold down the threads as you pull your needle all the way through, pull your thread all the way through, and then just tab the end down wherever you want it to be. You can twist the threads for a different effect, or you can lay them flat, or even pull the end of the stitch through where you started to create a little loop. And next is a fishbone stitch. So this is a really simple one that anybody can do, even an absolute beginner. It can help you to draw a central line for where you want the stitch to go, or to draw two tram lines for your edges. This is often used for leaves, so you can start with smaller, work larger, and then bring them in again at the end. But you need to pull all your stitches towards that central line, and it's essential that you go to alternate sides each time, a bit like you were lacing a pair of training shoes, so that you get that laced effect in the middle, which is quite pretty. Yoon is a Korean artist who specialises in portraiture. Most of her work has the same subject, her. She uses different techniques and methods like machine stitching and photography to embellish her work, and her work is often grotesque or humorous on purpose. She's challenging what portraiture is. It's her face, but she's disguised it, she's changed it, she's distorted it, and she's challenging the idea of the selfie, which is kind of a frozen smile. I do love the confrontational nature of her work. It's like she's daring you to face her. This is a detached buttonhole stitch. So what you need to do first of all is to use backstitch to create a space that you want your stitch to be within, because nothing in the middle of this is going to be attached to the fabric. So you need an edge to tack it all down to. So start with a buttonhole stitch across that top row. And then when you reach the end, hook around the sides so that you hold that row down. And then just simply repeat, going back and forth across as if you were knitting or crocheting really, to create a mesh and a pattern. I've worked quite loosely here just to kind of show you what I mean. It's easier to see if you work bigger, I can show you better. But these are often quite a lot smaller and tighter stitches. So later on in my work you'll see me working that way, but for now I'm working quite large just to show you what I mean. Now in my head this is called a strawberry stitch, simply because the first time I saw it somebody had embroidered a strawberry with it. Remember, on the last row of what you're doing, connect your stitches to the outer edge again to hold everything down. Now, a lot of people don't like the French knot. Some people find it quite scary, or they're just frustrated with it, can't do it. So I'm going to show you the easy way. All you need to do is loop your thread 3 times, and then as you put your needle point back in, you need to pull tight what you've already done, and then simply draw your needle through, but hold down the 3 loops that you put around the needle so that they don't move as you pull your needle through. This next stitch, well, it doesn't really have a name. It's just a way of making furry texture on things. So if you're working with embroidery with animals, this one can be quite useful. Just loop the thread around your finger as you go, creating big looped stitches. You could also use a knitting needle or a piece of cutlery. When you've got as many as you want, then gradually pull out what you've put through the middle and cut through the loops to get this lovely furry texture, which works perfectly for this little sea anemone that I'm doing here. Ana Teresa Barbosa is a Peruvian artist, and her imagery is quite sculptural. Her work often breaks out of the conventional artistic space, challenging the physical boundaries of what art is. She uses mixed media, so she's crocheting, knitting, photography, embroidery, she's painting. She often takes natural forms like sticks from the environment to add into her work. She often makes a feminist statement with her work, using traditionally female techniques to challenge femininity with visceral imagery. I like the way her work spills out of the edge of the space and challenges the conventions of what art is. Now this next stitch is the cast-on stitch that we worked on in the beginning, but with a little bit of a twist. So we've got some electrical tubing here, and I've put it round the needle, and again we're going to use the cast-on stitch, just wrapping around the needle, keeping it neat, using larger loops this time. When you've got as many loops as you want, then you need to pull the needle out along with the plastic tube and carefully keep hold of the looser loops that you've made, and then tack down again like we did before. So again, you can twist it, you can leave it flat, you can go back in where you started so you create an extra loop. It's entirely up to you. So now this next stitch we're going to look at the electrical tubing again, because I want to create a 3D stitch in my piece. So this electrical tubing is going to stay within the work, I'm just going to thread over it. So first of all, tack it down with a basic stitch into the places you want it to be, and this is going to be a little piece of fire coral. And then when you've got it secured, you can work over it with a different colour, with whatever colours you want to use, to make this into more of a stem shape. And of course we want nobody to see the little bit of electrical tubing, so at the end there I'm putting a couple of French knots just to cover up that end. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. You can sign up below for an exclusive free video on drawing skills and a weekly newsletter with art techniques and ideas. Don't forget to comment or like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know if you found this useful and learned something new today. Or if you've got any other unusual stitches to share, please tell us. Go to the Arty Mouse Facebook page or join in the Arty Mouse 76 on Instagram. We'll see you soon.